Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paver Art. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile.
Welcome to episode 32 of the Hustle or Bust podcast. We are fascinated by challenging industries. And when you look at the list of the most challenging businesses as measured by failure rate, the world of contracting ranks high on that list. So when we see a business that has defied the odds and thrived for over 2 decades, we can't resist talking to that business owner. Robert Phillips, owner of Phillips Contracting, is just that person. And we sit down for a deep dive into some of the things that have helped him defy the odds, and we hope you enjoy it.
You've had a relationship with Paver Art for actually quite a few years now.
Probably 9 years at least.
At least 9 years.
At least.
Yeah. You came to our first showcase, and you also met us first time at the E.P. Henry's Mott show, I believe. Yeah, exactly. So, and Mark basically bought the business and has been the owner of the business now for 4 years. So, what would you like to ask these gentlemen?
Well, why don't we start with, this is informal, all these podcasts
Very
are.
informal.
Bob, why don't you start with, how'd you start the business, how long you been involved? Give us a background, and then we'll dive in from there with whatever is interesting.
I guess I started, I was in construction. I went to college. I got my degree in building construction technology.
Where'd you go?
Pennsylvania College of Technology.
Cool.
My dad said, you have to go to college. And I'm thinking in my head, you're going to, because he's like, I'm paying for it, you have to go to college. So I'm thinking in my head, you're going to waste your money. So I found Pennsylvania College of Technology. I was like, oh, this is neat. So I went there, got my degree in building construction. It was hands-on, loved it. And then I got out. I think like the first patio I did was at my parents' house actually in 1999, 98 or 99. I hooked up with a framing crew. I framed houses for years. I got into start to finish additions. I was throwing little paver patios on. And then
How old were you when you were doing that?
Early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Right out of school.
Right out of school, yeah. I only really worked for 2 companies really in my life.
Why did you think college would be a bad investment for your dad? Because you knew you were going to start your own business?
No, I knew I'd probably fail out.
Okay, good.
I wasn't a classroom. Go sit in a classroom. I was hands on. I like doing things. I like moving. So to go sit in a classroom, to me, it already bored me right out of the gate.
Sure.
So maybe I would have been wrong or right. I don't know, but I didn't. I know I wouldn't. It wasn't for me.
Right.
But so I went there because it was. I checked it out and I said, "Hey, Dad, can I get my associate's degree? Is that okay?" And he said, "Yeah, that'll work." So we checked it out and turned. It's a great school. I mean,
cool.
And then I guess in 2008 is when I really made a switch over, and that's all I did was pavers because that's when the economy took a dump. I couldn't pay to build a doghouse in your backyard. I hooked up with a plumber, and we were doing sewer work. He had all the sewer work. I mean, it was total by chance, and my 2 kids were in diapers at the time, basically. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And then the economy started picking up a little bit, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on this hardscape and the pavers because they're like Legos. It was fun for me.
Sure.
And the only people who were spending money were the people who had it at the time because pavers, getting a patio is a novelty. So that's, I was like, I can just hit those people, and that's how it started. And I've always had one crew of guys. I'm on every job. We've done large commercial work, rooftop patios down to small sidewalks.
Sure.
Good. So you're 20 years in business then?
Yeah.
Right?
We don't talk about that. But
So, what does a crew look like for the audience that doesn't know hardscaping?
A crew, 4 people.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 people. Sometimes I've had 1 or 2 more. We've worked on some bigger jobs where I bring in some more help, but other than that, I think you can't have more than that really on a hardscape job.
Sure.
Just because there's not enough to do unless you're doing monster jobs every single day. But
right.
I believe more in equipment. The equipment works, and you get a couple guys, you're set.
Now, so it's interesting. Your philosophy is you want to be on every job. You want to, and there's a well thought out process for that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, to me, I mean, I guess sometimes it might be a hinder because I want everything my way. So sometimes, I have to sit back and say, hey, all right, you guys take over. Like we're on the job right now. Actually, I almost forced myself to sit in the machine for a while yesterday and just let, Mike, MJ, and my other son, Stone, he's not here, but they started doing it. It was like, okay, because sometimes I could, but I like being on every job because, I like when I'm done, you hear people say, oh yeah, I did that. It's like, no, like your company did that. Like to me, it's might be a personal thing in my own head, but like when I say I did that, like my hands were dirty in it.
Sure.
So, but that's just my take because it's my passion, I guess.
Right.
We'll talk about, if you would, talk to the situation in regards to how you learned
how I
to
learned
do hardscaping and get to the point where you were confident enough that you could start doing jobs on your own.
I think after the first job I did, I was confident enough. Just because I had a background of the building industry of making things square, level. Knowing that concrete pads had to be pitched. So I had the general knowledge of building construction.
Sure.
Over a couple years of doing it, and then when I did the first patio, the worst person I could work for was my dad because he in my eyes, my dad he's perfect, so it's got to be perfect, and
right.
I don't want to mess up for him.
Sure.
So the only way to learn how to do pavers was there was an E.P. Henry trifold catalog. I mean, and no lie, it was like, this is the steps you had to do. And no lie that we're actually redoing their patio this summer because they have a retaining wall. It was a railroad tie retaining wall that was already there. It's falling apart. And I guess my cousin's getting married, so having a big party at my parents' house, I think, or whatever. But it's time to redo it. It's the old E.P. Henry, Old Town Cobble. The aggregates are coming through. It's seen its day. But
Gotcha.
It still looks like the day we put it in, which amazes me. And so I over the years have just looked at that and be like, and in the trifold catalog was basically your ICPI standards, like the concrete sand, the 3/4 inch stone base, compact it, so.
I'm curious on that because that's a credential, ICPI. On your website, you had a number of credentials listed. Rattle them off, what they are.
Well, I guess we're the PICPI, the permeable paver, we certified in that. The NCMA or the walls
For retaining walls.
Yeah, the retaining walls. That's a big. I almost think that should come before anything. It's because they're a mess. And then your regular ICPI certification. And then we have a couple other ones.
And don't you have supplier certifications or?
Like Teco Block, yep. Teco Pro, like EP Henry. I think they're good, but we don't generate a lot of business from that. Every once in a while, they're like, "Oh, we found you on Teco Block's website. You're a certified installer." But somebody has to know to look for that,
right?
Along with being ICPI certified. But every time we go out to do an estimate, we go through. Hey, listen, if you don't hire us. Like we're almost through bidding, like getting in a bidding war with other contractors, landscapers, because obviously everyone knows everyone does it now. So we just have a list of criteria that we give the homeowners. This, if you're not going to hire us, at least ask these questions to other contractors. So if I'm going to lose this job, I'm going to lose it hopefully to somebody that is that has the same qualifications as me, or at least has an education in it. Or at least has contractor's insurance, or a truck, We'll
get into Hardscape Contractors of America later, but what if you had to guess, what percentage of all the contractors out there that are building patios, outdoor living spaces, are ICPI certified?
I wouldn't know the percentage, but I mean...
I think it's significantly less than half.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm not saying if you're not ICPI certified, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, there's a bunch of guys out there that, they may never even heard of ICPI, and they do amazing work. So I'm not going to demean anybody if they're not certified. But for me, as far as saying, I'm an established company. I've followed the rules. We have education in our craft, I guess.
It matters.
I put everything into it that I can to say that if something would ever happen, at least I can say in my own head, I did the best I can to the best of my knowledge that I have. So that at least there's some background in that for me.
Well, the reason why I think it's less than half is that question does come up on the page often.
Oh yeah, all the time.
And I think it's, if I had to guess, maybe 20% say yes, definitely. 80% are arguing is it even worth it? Why, the whole thing.
Yeah, to me it's 100% worth it. Just as far as
right.
When just simple things like a plate compactor. Everyone some people go out and like, oh, I bought my first plate compactor. It cost me $1,800. This is the best thing to slice bread. And then they'll go out and they'll put 12 inches of stone down and compact it and like, this is great. But maybe they, not because they're not smart or anything, but maybe they never knew to ask the question, does this compactor compact 12 inches of stone? Or do I have a problem?
Right.
Maybe not the end of the world, maybe the end of the world, but at least, if ICPI can teach you that little tidbit of information, which maybe, or like if the soil's, if you have that sponginess in the soil, like you have to fix that before your patio's failing already. So there's just even little things. If you learn little things about it, and then you get further into it and learn a lot more. But I mean, just if you don't know your work's failing when you start, because you spend a lot of money on a piece of equipment, doesn't mean you're a pro.
Well, this is a skilled trade.
Yeah.
And the skilled trade has a certification. In our world, it's ICPI, Concrete Paver Institute, or, that's the credential.
Yeah, because, if you do a concrete sidewalk, an inspector will come out, check your forms, make sure they're, your concrete's going to be 4 inches thick for your sidewalk. He's going to make sure, like, I guess every 30 feet you have expansion joint. Every 4 feet or whatever, or you have a control joint to, because it's going to crack. But make sure you have a stone base down. If you're doing a floor inside, it's got a vapor barrier. If you have to have wire mesh, there's all codes for that, and there's inspections for that. For a concrete sidewalk, that you're preventing there's going to be a failure on it. But yet so a homeowner can go out and get a $150,000 or an $8,000 patio, and there's no inspections. They just want to make sure you're not over your impervious surface. So, and to me, there's a lot more involved in that. You have sitting walls, you have fireplaces,
Sure.
There's codes for how far a fireplace has to be away from a house, but if you're just throwing a patio, how many people know that?
Sure.
So, not that I want there to be an inspector to come out for a patio, because that'll be a million inspections, but there should be some type of criteria. So that's where we give a homeowner a list of things. If you're not going to hire us, make sure you hire this guy, because I know on certain jobs I'll go out and look at them, and sometimes they're laid out a certain way, or you can tell somebody was there already talking if there's like 4 rocks in the corners or it's spray painted out.
Sure. Like,
I know someone's been there already, and you start to, it's like, okay, well, at least I know there's 1 or 2 people that have been here bidding on this job, that if I don't get it, I know who I'm losing it to.
Sure.
Or if I do get it, at least I'm glad I got it. But you know what I mean? Like, so I've never told a homeowner, hey, call me if you don't want us, and I'll let you know if you're hiring someone good. I don't go that far, but
right.
At least in my mind, or
well, there's I'm sure you've seen a number of failed jobs out there, right? They're not all perfectly built jobs, right?
Yeah,
there are all kinds of issues.
Tons. Amazing.
What percentage of the work that you do now would be rebuilds or basically fixing something that somebody else didn't do properly?
If I went after all of them, because and maybe I'm getting older, or I don't know, like sometimes I look at them, it's just like, you don't know how to tell a homeowner, like, because I've done it so many times, like, this is a complete tear out and redo, and they're like, what? Well, we spent $35,000 on this 4 years ago. Well, guess what? It's falling apart. Where do you want me to start? You have that whole sitting wall around the fireplace, which is tilting back. I have to tear that down. I have to redo the whole base. In order to do that, I go through the whole process. We have to, I'm not going to rebuild it on whatever's underneath. It's falling down because of what's underneath it.
Sure.
So then I got to do that, and then it's like, well, our lights don't work, and we've done that. We've gone and go to fix someone's lighting. That's a whole other monster. But it's like their lighting didn't work because all the caps were mortared on, and they ran the wire in the mortar. So in the freeze thaw cycle, it snapped the wire.
Right.
So we had to take all their caps off, and this patio was only 2 or 3 years old. We'd take all their caps off. Chisel. So to me, it's like, man, did I really make money on this job or not? So
essentially, it'd be lesser expensive if it was done right the first time.
Right.
Number one.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me, when we first got into this, we started this business 20 years ago, and it was the revolution of concrete pavers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really taking hold. People were just getting more and more interested in it. But the number of guys out there like you who actually knew their business back then, 20 years ago, very small. The percentage was much smaller than it is now. But to hear you talk, I'm getting the impression that there's still a decent number of,
Well, let's throw out a factoid. Our mutual friend, Paver Pete from Techo Block, he was on the podcast November-ish. Great little stat, and I'll screw it up, but directionally, either contracting or restaurants are the number one and number two failed business in America. Right? You're already ahead of the charts because you've been around 2 decades in one of the most highly failed businesses in America, right? And you're talking about jobs that you go on that there are all sorts of problems. We talked about ICPI, so it's a really hard market. The failure rate is tremendously high, and we're talking about ICPI. Should you get it? Should you not get it? Obviously, that answer is yes, but I think the majority of the people are not. So those two things are probably related.
Exactly.
If people don't invest in themselves to get the base level of education, they're going to be problems. And I'm curious, when you're saying you lose jobs and you kind of preempt the customer, right? That says make sure they have these 3 or 4 things. Smart, by the way. But you're probably losing jobs to the low bidder, you think, or what are the reasons?
I try to not think of that anymore because to me, like just listening to the people over especially the last couple of years, I'm tired of losing this job to the lowest bidder. I'm tired of losing to the lowest bidder. I used to say that, and then
you get a lot of that.
I almost think it's a growing phase, maybe. Like yes, sometimes it's like, oh, we'd like to have more work, or I've never ran out of work where I actually sat there and like, oh, where's the next job coming from? I mean, a few years ago, I'd be like, oh, we hope something pops up, but we do so many estimates every year. It gets a little annoying sometimes, but I'm happy I'm doing them. But to say I lose the jobs, the lowest bidder, I'd say yeah. But if I lose it to the lowest bidder, I don't know if it's the unqualified lowest bidder, or it could be someone who's knows a ton more than me, but only has a pickup truck, one guy, and hardly any overhead. Lives by himself. For all I know, I mean, he could be making less money and be making more money.
Sure,
charging less and making more. I don't know. So it does come down to overhead, but then it also comes down to selling the job. So I try to get out of my head because to me, there's a lot of negativity in that saying, oh, I'm just going to lose it to the lowest guy and he's going to do a shitty job.
Because you're full. You're not looking for work. You're generally...
Yeah, but even still, I think it's becoming a mindset. Oh, I'm going to lose, because, I used to joke around, like when I was little, my dad used to have an auto parts store, and they said Asphalt used to come and they dumped all their wood chips behind it. So we used to load my uncle's pickup truck with wood chips, take them home to their houses, my parents' house, my mom and dad's house, and my uncle's house, and spread wood chips. And then the neighbors get wood chips, and you see Asphalt, and they're cutting trees. You used to give them a box of donuts. They dump a load of wood chips in your driveway, and you spread it. So to me, I think that was the beginning of, and I'm definitely not insulting, but like landscapers, and I was one of them. Like I mowed the neighbor's lawn, my dad's lawnmower, and he's like, where's my money for gas? And then there was this old lady down the road, she had it, she actually bought an old lawnmower or a new lawnmower, and I used to mow her grass every week. But and then I used that lawnmower to mow someone else, so it's all of a sudden, you spread wood chips and you start mowing lawns, and then some people, they went trucks, trailers, and then 5-6 crews, and then those wood chips became mulch, and then mulch became the big thing, and then it was, hey, if you're mulching that bed, can you plant a tree? So now you're an overnight horticulturalist, and then all of a sudden, hey, can you? I want to put my grill on a little pad. Can you do a pad for me, whether it's concrete or pavers or whatever? Okay, great. And then you go rent a dingo, and then all of a sudden you become a horticulturalist, a hardscaper, a construction person, and a heavy equipment operator, all overnight.
There you go. You just laid that out beautifully.
And it's not slamming anybody, because I'm not going to lie, I was basically one of those people that did it. Like I bought my first Bobcat. I drove one, and I did it to fill my pool in at my house because it was all, I was like, I was going to go rent one. I got one at a good deal, however. But all of a sudden, I bought a trailer for that. I was a heavy equipment operator. So I mean, yes, that's why I'm not slamming people for doing it, because there's a lot of guys who've done really well for themselves and have, perfected their craft and do great work over becoming an overnight thing. But along with doing that, they've also got some education along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's self-taught, because there are some guys who just self-taught, and there's other guys like myself. I always wanted to know the hows and whys, because I did go to, I guess I got my degree in building construction, and then there was always codes and specifications you had to follow for even like beams going across houses. Like, well, how do you know that has to be that size? You just can't throw one in there. So I think I always had those questions in my head. So like, what kind of stone do you put down on the pavers? Because there was a company near us. I always asked him, I'm like, so what's the difference between screenings and concrete sand? And he was like, I won't mention any names. He was like, oh, you use screenings. It's way cheaper than sand, and screenings are great. But that was the thing. Why? And those pavers, actually, they were Capital pavers. So this is going way, way back. Capital's out of business now. But and this is how I found out about ICPI. The pavers faded. Like they were like a autumn blend or a red. EP Henry's autumn blend, but a red color.
Sure.
And I went there one day, and he wanted some more work done on the back of his house, and I was like, these turned beige. And I was like, oh, look, these. I was like, your paper's really faded and all that. Now, sometimes I open my mouth, I shouldn't. All of a sudden I open up my mouth, he's like, oh, really? And he's looking, I was like, well, let me go ask the supplier and see if they get warranted, thinking maybe I'd get paid for some warranty work. Well, I redid the whole front stoop, the stairs going down to the street, and, I basically did it for free. But blessing in that was, guy from Capital Pavers, the rep came out, and he pulled one of the pavers out. And he said, oh, good. And he goes, you mind if I take this, and you can go back, just go get a replacement one and put in there so it's not a hole in the sidewalk. And I was like, what do you mean, oh, good? He goes, this is covered under warranty. And I was like, well, why wouldn't it be? If he goes, we have you have concrete sand under here. If there are screenings under here, it would avoid our warranty. We wouldn't replace this. And I'm like, well, that has nothing to do with how the pavers were made. So long and short, it was like, I was like, well, because he's like, you met ICPI standards. I'm like, well, I followed an EP Henry trifold catalog. I don't know what ICPI is. And then I ventured and I looked into that. So there I got my answers. Boom. So I'm like, wow, this guy down the street's doing all this work, and none of his stuff's, wow. I always want to know kind of why I'm doing it. So if something would ever happen, at least back to where at least I know, how it was done.
It sounds like some of the lessons learned are, yes, you can go get the education. Education is extremely important. If that's what you want to go into, it's good to get a certification. It's good to get an ICPI certification, the beginner's course, the advanced course, and all that stuff. But putting it into play, actually going out into the field and actually doing the work.
But what are we talking here? Are we talking $100,000 in debt to get ICPI certified?
No.
So what's involved?
I mean, basically, I guess you just pay.
You can basically get it through. You can get it through the ICPI direct, or you can get it through any of the exhibitions that you go to.
Yeah, so, like at Mott's, you go down a couple of days early and you get certified.
So I'm not going to school for 4 years.
It's a couple of days. I think when I took it, I think it was 2 or 3 day class. It was at a local community college, and I went there. It was a room full of 30 guys.
But the idea is that they're basically giving you the bylaws. Okay, here's how you should be doing it.
Yeah.
If you want to pass muster with the ICPI.
Right,
what you're getting out there, I mean, every job is going to present its own challenges. You've got the basic knowledge, but you got to get out there like you did. One day I was a CDL. Okay, I had my CDL because I was a heavy. Now I'm driving heavy equipment. Running heavy equipment. You're step by step by step by step. You got into it, but you had the drive to do that. And that's how a lot of these businesses get started. Yeah. But you kept going and kept accumulating knowledge, not just the education, but the actual on-the-job training, self-training.
I agree 100% with that, but I think it's more basic. So we talk to business owners. They could be restaurant owners, comedians. We've talked to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I find really fascinating with this topic, what you just said, a couple classes at Mott's, I think you got to have some in-field experience.
Yeah.
You're not going away in a classroom for 4 years and incurring $150,000 debt to get ICPI.
Yeah, right.
Contractors are the number 1 or number 2 most failed businesses in the country, and it's relatively no barrier to get ICPI certified.
Yeah.
Yet more than half of them don't have it. Yeah. This is a mindset thing that the contractor community has chosen deliberately, with no barrier to entry and relatively low cost, to not do it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's fucking crazy.
Well, and I mean, you do have some like it all goes back to like I started out. I got married. I had a pickup truck.
Yep.
I worked for some people for a while, and then I was real fortunate that I worked for 2 companies really. Well, 3, but two of them were for framing houses, and construction work, and the one I'm still friends with this day. They're one of my. They're almost family to me. So, but it's horrible. They're perfect. Like they're fast. They're perfect. And we did work at the one son's house. Actually, both of them. And the one said, "Bob, I don't ask for much. It just has to be perfect when you're done." I'm like, so it's almost like working for one of your mentors. It's
right.
like,
it's like working for your dad.
Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, like it's like, it's just like, wow, put pressure on yourself. And then like the job we're doing now is for another good friend of mine. His son's getting married, probably on this patio. There's an awesome koi fish pond another company built behind it, but it's like, it's just sitting there. It's like, man, is that gonna look right? Is that gonna like, what if they are standing there like, oh, we should put up lighting on this? It's like all these things go through my head all the time. It's like, okay, well, let's get more work done. Come on, and I get mad. But you put yourself under these stresses. But it's like, I don't know where I was going with all this. But
Well, besides your dad, did you have a mentor or mentors that kind of helped you along the way? Guys that you could talk to, count on. Maybe one of the guys on your crew. I mean, what?
Not really. I think that was a hang up for a while. Like it was like, I worked for a landscape company. They're in our area. They're huge. They're great. I mean, they do. They're perfect also. It's like, you showed up. You had to have khaki shorts or khaki pants, beige or blue or whatever, and then you always had way back then it was just a blue T-shirt with their name on it. His trucks were lettered like there was everything was like a fine working ship. Like
sure.
Everything. So it was boom, boom, boom. And then when I started, then I got into that was like high school, like summers at college. And when I got out of college, I actually called a wrong phone number, but it was in the classifieds in the paper. And I called a wrong phone number, and I got a guy, and he's like, "Oh no, call this guy." And then, boom, I fell in the lap of this one company, Millar and Sons, and
you hustle.
I mean, I went to work. I mean, I'm telling you, you think you go out and you own the world, and you carry lumber on your shoulder for 2 years, that'll really set you right back in your spot. And you start thinking about, it's like, I went to college, I have a degree in building construction, I'm carrying lumber. It's like, I had to go through the ranks and get up, and that's a hard thing now. Like, like people have to realize, like, you are starting, no matter where you're at, you're starting at the bottom working up. You're not starting with a, Platinum F350, a trailer, and all the best tools in the world. You start somewhere.
Gee, why not? I don't
yeah. Well, you can, but you might lose it real fast unless you are that
That's
good.
exactly right.
But like that, I guess that gets back to like, you can do all this and get the education, but you also have to have, some type of business background. Like my dad's in a lot of banking and stuff, so he's teaching both my sons QuickBooks. So they go over once a week. So I mean, he saves his money. He's going on vacations, but he knows where his money's at. It's like, that was a problem I had. I wasn't real good with my financials, and then the second I got all my finances into order, all of a sudden things started happening. Because I remember when I bought my Bobcat, I was like, I wonder how I'm going to afford another one day. Now we have a plethora of equipment. We have backhoes, excavators, skid steers, dingoes.
Well, how did you get there? How did you get that financial knowledge? Was it School of Hard Knocks, or
a lot of School of Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
A lot of School of Hard Knocks. Some debt, some scary situations, and
sure.
then.
Did your dad? What was he?
No, you want to know why?
Give you advice.
I would,
not.
Looking back, it's horrible. My dad, if I ever wanted to hear something I didn't want to hear, I'd ask my dad, because he would tell me how it was. Because I went there one year, I'm like, so Dad, I'm thinking about buying a dump truck. Like, I got to get a new dump truck. I've been through 2 or 3 junk ones already. I want to buy a brand new one. I just want to make sure I have some finances right. And according to, contractors, like you said, they're probably one of the worst failed businesses because of it takes a lot of money to do a little bit of work.
Sure.
So, we have some snow removal contracts. We had one winter. I was like, I really need to get a super reliable truck. I'm going to be in all these different situations. I can boom, 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 here and here. But I don't want to, I don't want to go spend $90,000. But I have to. But do I? Or whatever it was,
What did your dad say?
I don't know how you're ever going to afford that. was like, well,
I'm asking this question because your dad and I had this. He told me this story.
Yeah.
At Mott's.
Yeah.
Okay. and then he turned to me. He said, "He got the truck anyway."
Yeah, and they got the truck. And I drove to New Hampshire. They built the aluminum bed, all the stuff. We drove to New Hampshire, picked it up, and came back down because it was later in the season. There was no.
But you know what he said after he finished saying, he says, "It was the right decision."
Yeah.
No, you made the right decision.
Yeah, because I buy used trucks. Some we buy some used, some new. Equipment's a whole another hours of talking. But like some new, some used. We have some we lease, some we buy. So it's sort of like our excavator. We use that. It's almost every day. It's great, but I lease it because in 4 or 5 years I give back. I get a new one. No hassle, no nothing. Like our skid steer, we own the skid steer now, but we had to replace the motor in it. Thank God we got done under warranty.
Sure.
Backhoe, we leased a backhoe because I wasn't sure. That was another thing. I went to my dad, a year later after, like, hey, think we can afford this new dump truck? And then this is right after, I guess, closer to coming off at like 2008. Things are starting to pick back up. Mm-hmm. What are you exactly doing? I was sort of in a shuffle period, but I knew where I wanted to go. And then I sat down. Hey, Dad, got a minute? What's going on? Well, I need to buy a backhoe. I ran all the numbers. This is where I'm at, because to go to him, it's not just like, hey, he got to see the numbers. Got to see this. Got to see other options. It's almost like bidding a big job. Do you think, because in my eyes, it's just simple, yes or no. And then we sat down and I don't know. I was like, well, if we lease it, it's going to be this much cheaper. And it comes with a free snow box. I'm like, I'll get a free snow box. I don't care about anything else. I'm getting a free snow box. Well, how are you going to move it? I drive it down the road. Who cares? All of a sudden, I'm telling you, going 11 miles down the road to a half an hour away sucks. So, hey, Dad, we need another dump truck, a bigger one with a bigger trailer, So, but all in all, like, I the way we based our snow out, the snow pays for the backhoe. I don't use the backhoe for anything else. If I use it for anything else other than snow, the snow pays for it. It's just the way we have it set up. And then we use it in the yard to load the trucks in summertime. So basically, it's a free machine in the summertime. But and then I went to him and I was like, "Hey, Dad, got a minute? What now? Like not what now, but what? Thinking about starting another business. Are you kidding me? Like you don't have time for that. We can do that." And then we started Hardscape Contractors America. It's like, "Hey, Dad, got a minute?" He goes, "No, I don't have enough time the rest of my life to deal with this right now."
Was that the waste business?
We started a dumpster company.
Go into that. How you started that? What was the opportunity? What did you see there as opportunity?
Wicked Waste.
Wicked Waste, yeah.
Which I love the branding of it. I really do. It's awesome.
Well, that was funny too. Cause we started.
You just don't see receptacles like that anywhere.
Well, I'm like, if I do something, I want to have fun doing it. Like it's like going to college. Like I can't go in college and sit in the classroom, but I'll go to college and stand in a warehouse and swing a hammer, and then go out and pour concrete on side jobs that the school has and stuff like that. Like that's fun to me. Like right. Experiences. So I always wanted a hook lift truck for Phillips Contracting. Like that was on my list of things to do. Like my whiteboard in the office of hopes and dreams, and like one of them, like that's another great thing I always recommend to people. Get a whiteboard. You may have a computer and all that, but get a whiteboard. Put it next to your door in your office or wherever it is, or your garage. So every day you walk by it,
gotta see it.
You see it. So of course on the top, I have a picture of both my kids. They're a little young in that picture, but every day I see my kids. So my kids are always in my mind, which they are anyway. I don't need those pictures to tell me that, but I see them every day. They're there. And then I had like hopes and dreams, like. You can even say I want to go to vacation next year somewhere. May it not happen, may happen, who knows. Like we need to get a safe for the office, whatever. So I had a safe on there one year. Like I'm something I don't need, but I need. So it's like save up for a safe. Well, it turned out to be a big gun safe for in the house, but I got the safe, and then like one was I remember one year to become like permeable paver certified. I put that on there. So it was a thing in my head. So it's like, okay, it popped up. Oh, so I signed up and got that, and then another one was a hook lift truck, and then, whatever, certain things I wanted to do, accomplish, toys I wanted, whatever. And then I was sitting down, and that's, I guess, when COVID was happening, and then we lost some employees, and, it was like, I am getting older, my knees hurt, my back hurts, whatever. What am I going to do? Like, what's really happening right now? Mm-hmm. Like, I've never been in a position where I had more work I knew what to do with and not enough employees. It's always been the opposite. Like I had plenty of guys, but I need to get more work to keep these guys busy. All of a sudden, and it was a scary time with the pandemic and all that. So, what do I do? And I was talking to my sister on the phone. It was her Friday night. I'll never forget it. And she's like, what's your 5-year plan? No one ever asked me that before. I wish someone asked me that 20 years ago. What's your 5-year plan? Like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? And you don't have to have an age for that. I was like, I don't know, Missy.
Well, you also had 3 ideas, too. Like, 3 things that humans always need. Air, trash, and then dead people.
And septic. And
septic, yeah.
On the whiteboard you're talking about?
We got
No, business,
to
on plans,
this.
yeah.
Like, like you said, I sat back, and this is funny. My sister's in business. So she's a business. She's like my dad. She's a business person. She's a numbers person. She's logistic. Things have to be in place for this to happen, and it can't happen unless you have this. This is probably why contractors fail, because we're just like, let's get this and go.
Right.
So that's where, I'm sitting there, and she's like, "What's your 5-year plan?" I'm like, "I don't know." I was like, the last 10 went really quick. And this is the first time I actually sat down. True. This is probably one of the first times I've actually sat down and thought about my life.
It's a great question, isn't it?
Because I've always been like, I needed to get this truck. I want to have this. There's the biggest, hardest thing to get over in my life. How do I get what that guy has? The second I stopped worrying about what that guy had,
big move,
was the second thing started turning around for me, because I stopped thinking about what that guy had. You need to think about what you have. Getting what that guy has gets you nowhere. That gets you in a pile of payments, trust me.
Right.
But and to be that guy, you also have to know what that guy knows or what that guy does,
sure,
good or bad. So that'll never work for you. You could be like, hey, I would love to be like that someday, but you can't put yourself in the moment like, I need to be him now. How do I do that? Because that was the biggest thing I ever did. I could even that's where I sort of changed my thought process for that. But I sat down and I was like, I don't have a 5-year plan. I say, I'm here now, and I never thought this was going to happen. I never thought I'd be here. I was like, 5-year plan. I was like, I don't know. So I just sort of based on like, okay, what if I just have to start all over? What would I do? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, where am I going to be in 5 years? I was like, I can't be by myself doing this. That's for sure. And I knew I was picturing worst case scenarios in my head. And I looked at my whiteboard on the corner of the office, and I was like, I saw the hook lift truck. I just sat back and I was like, Missy. She's like, yeah. I was like, there's a couple things in life right now that are fail safe making money. Cutting hair. My wife's a hairdresser because everyone's hair grows.
Yep.
Tombstones or caskets because everyone's dying. Everyone's gonna do it one day. So there's got to be money in that somewhere. Septic, because everyone does that too. And trash, because everyone makes trash. I'm not cutting hair. I'm not going to get in the funeral industry because I'm just not. That's too depressing for me. Septic, okay. I don't know. I'm just not getting in septic, and that's probably where a lot of money's at. But I'm not going to get in septic. And I was like, trash. And I saw a hook lift truck. I told my sister, I was like, I'm going to be a trash man. She's like, what? Just like that? And I was like, yep, I'm going to be a trash man. I was like, I'm going to start a dumpster business, without any rhyme or reason. And she goes, so you're going to sit down, talk to Sal? And I was like, no, I'm going to be a trash man. And then the best thing, because it has to be fun, it needed a cool name. Or something that was fun to deal with. So I was like, you know what? And that took a while, because it was about 16 months I actually sat down and planned it. And once again, through this industry and hardscaping and the people I've met through there, through Ross Causey. Mm-hmm. He has his website,
Great guy.
His education network. I met a guy in there. He's the Anthony Martinaro. He's a moderator.
Yep.
And because I seen he was into it, so I contacted him because he lives like 2.5, 3 hours from us, and then he referred me to a few other people I talked to about it, and then, so because I knew I was going to have to go to the powers that be and say, hey, Dad, look at these numbers. Do you think it's possible if because I get, I do take gambles, but it's like, I like to take educated gambles. Like, before I go pull this plug and do you think it's possible? So it was probably 16 months, at least 18 months before I actually sat down and pulled the plug on this. But I talked to him. He got me through it, and I saw Ross one day. He had a little event thing, and I was telling him about it. He's like, you need to talk to Anthony. I was like, I've been talking to Anthony for like the last 6 months. He's like, really? So, and then another company, and I devised a plan on how it should work, of what I wanted to do, the size containers, size trucks, this and that and other things. So, we got a truck without a CDL license. We're geared towards, towards a certain clientele, but now he just got his Class A CDL, so all of a sudden, Dad, we're going to get a triaxle or hook lift? It's like, oh, no.
And that's been on the whiteboard for a bit.
So that's
triaxle.
If your sister never asked you that question, what's your 5-year plan? Does the business start, you think?
No. Wouldn't happen. I highly doubt it. Because it wasn't a thought in my head.
Right.
It wasn't even in my thought process.
So you
5 years
doing the
wasn't
things.
even, 5 years wasn't even in my head yet.
So you had the whiteboard, which is probably more than 90% of the people have, of things you want to, from the permeable paver. You had all these goals.
And there's some things that are on there, they've been on there so long, they don't even rub off anymore.
Right.
So I haven't accomplished all my goals yet. And I couldn't even tell you what's on there, but some of them might be whatever. But, like, that hook lift truck was on there. Like, years ago, I wanted this Topcon Transit to shop pitches and all that. But years ago, to go spend, I don't know, $1,800, $2,000, whatever it was a lot of money for me. I'm still recovering from, I just got a new skid steer, which I thought I'd never have. And then it's like, you start looking down at your list of payments. It's like, oh, well, if before it was back when it was still month to month, before we started becoming more of a business structured. Which also, my mom, she retired years ago. I said, what are you doing with the rest of your life? You want to make some phone calls for me? Like, answer the phone? I'll build you an office above the shop. You want hardwood floors, carpets? Well, I took her to a Tego Block showcase, and that's what triggered that. She looked like a kid in a candy store. She's like, wow, there's a lot involved in this. So, boom, all of a sudden, mom's involved. So I owe her the world. She has definitely helped out huge as far as getting things in line. We just call her human resources.
She's HR.
Sure. Yeah, she's got a very good business
and a very polite voice.
I've dealt with her several times.
And she is a pit bull. I mean, don't get me wrong. She
So 16 months. You did your homework on this business before launching it.
Solid, yes.
And how's it doing now?
It's working.
You're getting off the.
It's not like the YouTube videos. Like that's
it make this much money in a
year.
You
were right. Yeah. You don't become a millionaire overnight.
Right. Not many businesses you do.
Not unless you have the sexiest kneecap in the world you can sell on the internet pictures of. But you're not. As far as how I've done it, it's successful. It's working. It's working. It's working well. I have a lot of money involved in it. But I also had some money backed up to hold it in case it didn't take off overnight. Like you think I'm going to be a millionaire next month. I'm going to have all these cans out on the road. So that that's just like everything else. You think you're going to do 1 billion square feet of pavers every summer. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. But maybe other opportunities arise. So we're spaced out. But the container business, it's going great, and it's going great. One reason because he can drive the truck before he had a CDL. My dad, it's funny, he drives it. So it's not like I have to hire a full-time driver to sit around for 40 hours a week hoping he's working 40 hours a week. So that structure, it's working really well for me.
Before we get into hardscape contract, I want to get the family business. How long have you been working with Dad?
My whole life.
You have. Yeah. So talk about the family aspect because you've got.
I'm 19. I'm 19. I'm turning 20 this year.
All right, and just let's do the resume. So you've got your CDL.
Yes.
You're learning, or you learn TIG welding.
Yeah, he's in school for TIG welding now.
You're in school for TIG welding. Okay. You've worked on jobs with your dad.
Yes.
Installing pavers and walls.
Yes. I graduated from automotive technology too.
Okay. Wow. Keep going. What else have you?
Automotive technology. I know how to work on the truck, so I can.
At what age can you remember going with Dad on a job site? This is going to be a fun answer.
I remember one summer I really wanted a dirt bike. I'm like, Dad, can I get a dirt bike? Because all my friends had dirt bikes, and I'm like, I want a dirt bike. And he's like, well, you got to put in some work. So I worked for almost a full month, and every day,
How
week.
Old were you?
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
Yeah.
So 15.
And then
but they were out shoveling sidewalks in snow, and man, you guys were
when we were like little, all night long. We would go out with the guys, shovel crew.
6th grade, you said?
Yeah, and even before that, I was shoveling
like 11.
snow.
So every summer past 6th grade, how'd you spend your summers?
Working and I didn't work as much as I do now, but I did work some weeks of the summer and did come and work. And,
maybe half the summer, you think?
Yeah,
half the summer.
Yeah, sometimes I take him to work for a week and his brother to work for a week.
Yep.
Because you get two of them sitting there, or it's tough.
And then I started full time my junior year because my mom pulled me out of school when the pandemic came, and then I started working full time, and she homeschooled me on my free time.
And
Wonderful.
And then I also did automotive technology in that time. I finished my second and third year.
So he'd go to tech for half a day and then work for half a day. And his senior year, he got out on co-op because we had a shop where you can work on the trucks and stuff. Yep. So that I guess it was a fine line.
That worked out.
It was a fine line because he's still working on equipment.
Sure.
So he'd come out, because he does brakes on the trailers and fixes some trucks when they break. If we
oil
can
changes, fuel filter changes, all
lots
that.
Lots of flat tires.
Yeah. Lots of flat tires, yeah.
Especially on an Oak Cliff truck.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got to ask. I'm not asking for fatherly advice, but we've got Dominic. He produces the podcast. He's 15, and he's worked now 3 summers at Paperwork, right?
Right.
And there is a little bit of a tug I have. Should I be pulling him in this active? He's getting more and more active in the business. Pretty much the technology stuff that it's now past me.
Yeah.
How do you think through as a dad, two sons, the family business aspect? Is it just natural? It just happens? You don't spend a lot of time thinking about it?
Well, I guess, obviously as a father, I think about everything. Is this the right decision? Am I pushing my kid the right direction? Am I doing right? But watching him grow, he's been on every realm of how a kid is, I guess, as far as a parent. Oh, is he going the wrong direction? Is he hanging out with the wrong crowd? Is he hanging out with the right crowd?
Right.
Maybe he should be doing this. Well, maybe I'm doing it. So just to watch him grow, but just push him right from wrong.
Right.
And I always told him, I said, whatever you do, never be worried about upsetting me. You're allowed to mess up.
Right.
You're allowed to fail. If you don't fail, if you don't do something wrong, you're not doing something right.
Right.
Because I was that kid. I was more afraid of my parents, so I never actually got caught doing things. I've had a wild life, but it's been a good wild. But so I always told him, whatever you want to do, you do it. Never think I'll be ashamed or upset or whatever. If he would say, "Hey, Dad, I want to go," not saying it's bad. I want to go work at McDonald's, or I want to pursue the hotel industry, or
Sure.
I want to do this or that, or I want to be an over-road truck driver, whatever. Go. Don't make me hold you back. But on the other hand, I'm like, don't go. We got something going on here.
Right.
Do we have some? So it's sort of like
Well, it's interesting. We did a podcast, I guess episode 25 or 26, and we talked about. We really got into the whole thing with work ethic and high school. We originally came up with an idea that, look, 18-year-olds as a general rule coming out of high school have no clue what work ethic actually is. Okay?
Right, that's our fault. Because wait.
Thank you.
Because we became overnight horticulturists, overnight hardscapers, we became that. So all of a sudden everyone's hiring us to take care of their properties. Because I 100% noticed that, because I heard a guy once say, as I start to saw, he's pulling the cord. I'm like, what's going on? You have to choke it. That's when I saw the lights go out. What? I'm like, you have to choke it. What's that? I'm like, we've never started something like this before, have we?
And it's also not overnight, okay? And that's the point I think you're trying to make.
Yeah.
We came to the conclusion and really pushed it hard on that podcast.
Well, the title. The title was called, I think it was the title was called A Wake-Up Call to Parents.
Yeah.
So you didn't by accident, in the 6th grade, start working. But you had a motivation, you had the dirt bike thing, but you had Dad there that valued hard work and work ethic and values. But the teenage labor participation is plummeting to like 25%. 25% of teenagers are working now in the summer.
75%.
Think about how scary that is. They don't know how to choke anything. Forget about choking something.
Yeah.
They don't know how to get out of bed and show up somewhere on time at 8 o'clock. I mean, it's bad.
And we've seen this over and over and over and over again. And what MJ did is pretty damn admirable. That falls in line with what we were saying in that podcast. We basically said, parents, you're to blame, okay? And if you want to do something about it, you start your kid working when he's 14. And what we mean by that, I mean, he still goes to school. But even, I think you kind of placed a minimum limit of 8 weeks during the summer.
The interesting thing is,
do something.
Let's see if we can tie it together with a couple things here. When your sister asked you the magical question, what's your 5-year plan, that meant to somebody with skill, work ethic, and accomplishment.
Great point.
If you've got a young adult that's 25 years old, how old are you?
I'm 19.
19. But let's say you were 25 and you never worked at 6th grade on up. You've got what I call the lost decade. You've got a teenager that's never worked before, doesn't know the value of hard work, hasn't done what you did just because you wanted a dirt bike and then continue to do it. So with that question, let's just say you're 27 and you've had 3 or 4 different jobs. You're not successful at any of them. You're not grinding away, gaining accomplishments. And some sister or some smart person asks you at 28 with limited experience and all these different jobs, what's your 5-year plan? You've got the lost decade happening, basically. And I think it all stems back from kids that are growing up. It doesn't happen when you're 19. It happens when you're 13 through 19, developing those habits, I think.
Yeah.
And they're not being developed. So what I love about you guys is that you're working and you're seeing you got a great role model there, but it's a problem with these teenagers and not working, I think. That's taken years to kind of filter through. I mean, it really is challenging.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a rant.
Well, he says sometimes. I mean, like he gets not lost, but like he just has that nature. He always wants to do something. Like he wants to go ride his dirt bikes. He wants to go snowboarding.
Awesome.
He wants to go to the beach. He wants.
Right.
So it
always wants.
So I'm always like, if you have that want, you have to have something to fuel the want.
That's right.
I guess to me, like it is neat. Like social media is a great thing, but sometimes it's a little hinder. Sometimes it's like because you just see other people. Like I said, that was the hardest thing for me. Like oh look, that guy's got that. Oh, that
comparisons are deadly.
You could ask. It's funny. You could ask my mom. We used to sit back. How did that guy get that? How did they get there?
Oh, gives a
How
shit.
are they doing it? How are they doing it? And the next thing, boom! Like even we became a Techo Pro. Part of being a Techo Pro is you get to do this. I guess everything has another opportunity. I mean, always. Like even just sitting here talking to you guys, whether it's a podcast or just talking to you guys, there's another door that opened up. I may not see it for a year or two. I might see it tomorrow. You never know.
But,
like the first time I walked into your booth, it's like glow in the dark pavers. That's priceless. Like where can I get them? And then all of a sudden, boom! Here I am. How many years later? 8, 9, 10 years later. Here I'm having a podcast. This is cool. But there's so many doors that open all the time.